Hello, fortune seekers. Our guest today makes terrible games. Wait. I mean to say that our guest today founded Terrible Games, the game studio responsible for Token Terrors. John De Campos is a game designer and creative director with Terrible Games, and he is about to launch his 4th Kickstarter campaign. So today, he is going to teach us all about the hard lessons he's learned through those 3 other Kickstarter campaigns, as well as how Magic the Gathering spurred him into being a game designer. And does generative AI have a space in this industry? All that and more on today's episode of the Moth Studios Super Secret Podcast. Shh, don't tell anybody about it. Welcome back, fortune seekers. I'm your host, palette masochist and John Carpenter supremacist, Joel Watts, joined as always by
Danny, trying really to adjust to this Texas weather. I can't decide if I'm hot or cold.
Oh, I am so hot, baby. And this week we are joined by John De Campos, creative director and game designer at Terrible Games, makers of Token Terror, Battlegrounds, and Valka.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right, John? Valka?
Your guess is as good as mine. It's Chechnyan. it's. I didn't know this. So when I started developing the game with the game's creator Brooke Penrose, the original name of the game was Bellum, and I was like, "Here's a tip, new person to the board game industry. Just go search that on Board Game Geek and see what happens." And yeah, there's like 7 games that use the word Bellum in some way as their title treatment. So I was like, you need to choose a new title for this game, dude. And he came back with Valka, and I was like, I love it. I don't know where it comes from or what it's about, but I think it sounds cool. I think it's mysterious and evocative. He was like, it's just the word war in Chechnyan, and I was like, perfect. That's fine.
That's a really great way. And that game, so you're going to be able to find Valka on hitting Kickstarter very soon. And
November 7th, right?
Yep, Tuesday, November 7th.
Yep.
Busy month this November.
Yeah,
Whoo!
We'll be sure, check the show description. We will have a link to the Kickstarter right down there. But in case that doesn't work out for them, what is the best way of finding it? Can you just Google Valka card game?
Valka card game, and it's spelled exactly the way it sounds, but it has one of those, I think I forget what it's called. It's not an umlaut.
No.
I don't remember what it's called. It's not a tilde.
I don't think we're going to help on that one.
Yeah. Audience, chime down in the comments. What should we have said right here? Okay. Well, so we're going to be getting into that and the process of kickstarting and John's own game design background, like what brought him to this field. But if you want to check out more of our shows, you can check out previous episodes where we've discussed everything from serial killing with Jack Malacat to the transformations going on in the TCG scene with Bryant Polanco. And if you want to learn more about those, just take a step back in your personal podcast application of choice and just check out some of the previous episodes we posted. Now, today we're going to be talking about what we need to be successful on Kickstarter and the ethics of integrating AI tools into your game design workflow. But before that, as always, we love to kick off with a little something called the question of the week. Are you ready, John? Are you ready, Danny?
Yes.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this week's question was actually suggested by Danny while we were coming up with the show notes, and it is, if you could choose to vanquish one chain restaurant from the face of the planet, what would it be? John, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll go with McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way that a company that size with the number of locations they have on planet Earth isn't doing irreparable harm somehow. There's just the sheer scope of their dominance on the entire world is enough reason for me to just eliminate them completely and just see what kind of benefits happen afterwards with absolutely no other information.
That is fair, and that's
on par with eradicating the mosquito.
Yeah.
It's like, let's roll the dice.
Yes, absolutely.
It could have been the linchpin of all human civilization was the McDonald's supply chain.
There's something to be said though about how their sandwiches last forever. Like if you put it in a glass jar and just leave it alone, you can open it like a year later and it's still edible. So I don't know. I guess that's a redeeming. That's both horrifying and a redeeming quality in a weird way.
I'll give you two reasons why McDonald's is on my shit list right now. So I just got back from Barcelona. I went and saw Sagrada Familia, which is like a masterwork. It's like a giant cathedral that Gaudi made and has been under construction for over 100 years. It's one of the most beautiful buildings you'll ever see. And directly across the street, you've got McDonald's, KFC. And it's just like, it's like the Americans are like, oh yeah, you wanted to have a nice cathedral here? We've got our own cathedral here. It's called McDonald's. And then I always heard McDonald's is better in other countries. So I went to Spain to try McDonald's and it's not. It's terrible. It's still terrible.
Still terrible. For me, yeah, I actually, since you stole my answer, I'm just going to give my little 2 cents on the whole McDonald's one, which is I would vanquish McDonald's, but I would make it a public execution with like Whataburger and Wendy's in the front row to teach them a lesson too.
That makes sense.
It's like
just
a
to
warning.
keep them honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at Wendy's, the beef is never frozen. They got square patties. I don't know. They do on the East Coast. They kind of do it right. There isn't like a big East Coast only like food chain like I love In-N-Out Burger, but can't get it over here.
No, and we just got it here in Texas, and it's competing with our local Austin favorite P. Terry's, basically.
Yeah, I love.
See, that's another reason to get rid of McDonald's is that I wish if McDonald's didn't exist, there could be a local Baltimore homegrown burger joint that's just out of this world. It's just amazing, but they don't exist because they're getting edged out of the market.
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay.
Oh man, I can't. I mean, I'm looking forward to going to Baltimore. I've always heard. What was it? Is it this roast beef with like
Yeah, dude.
thick sauce on it?
Yes, tiger sauce or pit beef. Yeah, a Route 40 pit beef with tiger sauce. Or you can get this crazy sandwich. Doesn't make any sense. It's smoked turkey, smoked beef, and smoked ham on the same thing. It's just a heart attack inside a tin foil. But yeah, the pit beef. And then, of course, if you ever visit Maryland, everybody will tell you to get a crab cake. So, that's the local cuisine over here. But yeah, good call on you knowing about the pit beef sandwiches.
Thank you. We worked. Danny and I both worked at Central Market, and there was a Baltimore chef who was there, and he would tell us about the things that we don't have here that we should.
Who was that, Roger?
I think so. He was. Can I say what he called me?
Yeah, I think. I don't know what he called you.
He called me ball chin because back then I had it's very it wasn't as defined. It basically my facial hair at the time was very, let's say, pubescent, and so he called me ball chin, and that got me to shave my chin. I was like trying to rock
prepubescent or pubescent.
Well, just pubic.
Aha.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it works both ways.
Yeah.
Somehow McDonald's became a conversation about pubic hair, so that's great.
Danny,
for me,
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone thinks they know what I'm going to say, and they're right. Subway, yeah. I don't think we need any more subways on this planet. I don't understand how there are so many subways. And
there's actually an interesting story behind that about the reason why there's so many subways. I don't want to speak out of turn because I remember seeing a short video essay. Actually, I think John Oliver did like a whole thing about it. He talks about how it's basically like it's kind of a scam. A lot of people you can't survive it, but they make the franchising for it so affordable to people who are just entering the United States. That's why you see a lot of people from outside of the U.S. who are running it because it's just like a really easy entry point. And also there's like an incentives program. It's this whole thing. There's a reason, and it's not super awesome or upstanding on behalf of Subway. Former Subway employee speaking, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Did you ever meet old Jared Fogle?
Oh, yeah, we met, and I knocked him out immediately. Then I danced for a little while, and then I made my signature sub that I tried to get on the menu, but they wouldn't let it happen. It's called the Sicilian. It's a meatball, but it has pepperoni, salami, and fresh mozzarella with the sweet peppers and oregano. It was like mega Italian sub, but no cold ingredients. Everything is hot. And I thought it was amazing, and I couldn't get him to put it on the menu.
It sounds amazing to me. The meatball, that was like the one redeeming quality to Subway. I just have a nostalgia for the meatball sub, and that sounds like the big boy grown-up meatball sub.
Yeah, it was very serious. The hacking, the sandwich hacking going on back in my day was some really serious stuff. There was all kinds of weird things going on back in the early aughts.
The Wild West of Subway. I remember that's when I probably ate the most Subway in my life.
We might have to have you back for a Subway hacking.
Fuck it,
episode.
guys. Let's just start a podcast where we talk about sandwiches for an hour.
I'm trying to get there.
What about you?
We're
Joe?
coming
What
for you,
got?
doughboys.
Who are we killing alongside McDonald's and Subway?
No, that I just prepared McDonald's. Okay, if I have to choose another brand to get rid of, man, dang. I personally, okay, I know this is going to be controversial, and I feel like this is a spicy take, no pun intended, but Taco Bell, I could just do without. It's like it's mostly for that temptation I have every like 3 years to get Taco Bell, and I get it, and then I feel like early onset diabetes sets in or something like that. It feels like I feel both like I am still hungry, like I didn't have anything to eat, and that something inside of me is spiking.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think there's more restaurants that I would rather remove than keep. So I'm not going to argue with you about Taco Bell.
I know we could have made this a draft. What are we saying?
John, are you a Taco Bell apologist?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
what's your
No,
position?
Taco Bell is a go-to around here. I don't understand what you're doing wrong, and the fact that you only eat Taco Bell 3 times a year is crazy to me.
No, once every 3 years.
Yeah, every 3 years. Okay, dude. I don't. It's probably like once a month or once every other month for me. It's like go-to DoorDash hangover food.
Yeah, I can understand it for that purpose. Now, I think something you have to remember is whenever I have a taco craving, we're right here in the middle of Texas,
Sure.
baby. We got Tex-Mex City.
Yeah, you guys are on another level.
I could go to any mom pop, Tex-Mex place and just be like, ooh, give me that greasy burrito.
You guys got the tamales guys there?
No.
Oh, in California, back in the day, there'd be a guy who would just walk around with a cart and sell tamales right out of the cart.
Yeah. I thought it was like a new chain or something. No, we've definitely got a lot of people selling different things out of carts.
We're going to be seeing tamales, folks. It's like a
Christmas
seasonal?
tradition.
Yeah, Christmas tradition. But my stepfamily is Hispanic, so I don't even have to go and find the guy. I just go home.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, then you got to stand around for 2 or 3 hours and actually help make the tamales, though.
I'm a servant at heart, John. I'm a servant at heart.
We do the Syrian version of that at my family, rolling grape leaves, which is just as arduous. You're just sitting there rolling leaf
Well,
after leaf.
that's the whole thing of those respective dishes. I think it's not even just that you get to eat them. The whole family has to get together and like assemble them over a course of a couple hours, and you all get to hang out and complain together.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is.
It sounds like church to me. A real community builder right there. Ever dreamed of embarking on legendary quest, unlocking hidden secrets, and discovering untold riches? Dive into the world of X, Seekers of Fortune. It's the game that's soon to be taking the internet by storm. Sign up today at xseekersoffortune.com and start your journey to greatness. Remember, fortune favors the bold. See you there. So, John, why don't we go ahead and actually delve into topics of game design? We've talked a lot about food so far. I'm very happy that we all have our opinions, but I thought I'd get started today. I know Danny has some questions prepared for you as well, but I thought I'd want to get the ball kicked off with the classic origin story question for you as a game designer. What was the first time that you thought, I want to make a game? Do you remember that?
Yeah, a buddy of mine, his name is Matt P.A. He went to an Unpub in College Park, which if you're not familiar, Unpub is an organization that holds events where they invite independent, unpublished game designers to show their prototypes for the weekend. They do smaller events that are spotted throughout the year, but they do one big one in College Park every year where they run it for I think it's 3 or 4 days straight. And he had gone to that, and he came out of it being like, how cool is that? Because he's seeing extremely rough homemade prototypes of stuff scribbled on cereal boxes, right? So he's like, I can make a game, and he asked me to play test it, and I was like, so you're making a game, dude? I'll do the artwork. Let's go, dude. Let's launch pad this thing. I'm ready to help you, whatever you want to do. And he kept on play testing, and he kind of dragged his feet a little bit on it, and it kind of went away. It just disappeared for about a year, and then I was playing Magic the Gathering with my best friend Lucas. And we were both playing these token generation decks that were completely flooding the battlefield with all manner of bits and baubles and all these strange random items. And it was 1 a.m. and the board state was an absolute zone of chaos. It was just all this stuff. And I was like, why isn't there a little like knobby dice-sized figurine that represents a little ghost or a little goblin or something you can throw in your dice bag. And we started brainstorming, and he came up with the name Token Terrors. And then I started chasing that down. And once we had the miniatures designed, I remembered back to my friend Matt, who was he just decided to design a game. And I was like, yeah, we could design a game for these guys. We should give them more value. We should figure out how we can make them more attractive to people outside of Magic, because we don't control Magic. We don't decide anything about Magic. So if we're going to do all this work, let's make a board game for them. A couple years later, like, I thought it was going to take like 6 months. It took us about 2.5 to 3 years to actually get the system for Token Terrors prepared. And after that, I like basically caught the bug, and lockdown was happening. And I just started like designing a bunch of games and playing lots of games and really getting just consumed by the board game design world.
It's crazy how many game designers I think are game designers because of COVID. Like, I think COVID did something to everyone having to stay indoors. That, I mean, I think that's part of the boom in game design right now. I mean, do you feel that way? Do you feel like there's just game designers popping up? Or do you feel like, everywhere? Or do you feel like it's always been like this?
I mean, I started getting into learning to design and getting ready to self-publish and stuff like between 3 and 4 years before anything with COVID happened. But once I was locked in the house, nobody was going anywhere, and we had already funded a game, and I'd done that research where we had a company, basically, like we had a small business, and we had crowdsourced one game. So I was like, yeah, I really coped. I used it as a coping mechanism, to be real with you. I just completely went heads down and was like, I'm doing work for my board game publishing company now, and just kept making games to keep myself kind of distracted and busy and feeling like I was doing something while I was stuck inside,
So was Token Terrors funded before COVID?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was just going to say two things. Somebody who is also going through something right now, I have definitely embraced the whole putting my nose down into this whole project wholeheartedly as a way of escaping. Well, it's something I'll probably be talking to my therapist about tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
But another thing is, I'm glad to know that we're brothers in one sense. We should come up with a term for this, but folks who wanted to design something for Magic who decided it was just easier to make their own damn game.
There you go.
I think that's how X Secrets of Fortune came about too on our end.
Yeah.
What is your current relationship with Magic?
Who, me? Big fan. Yeah. I play Arena every day.
Oh, okay.
I saw you scoop Mob recently. I think you got the token bug for sure.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. My kid just popped in for some reason.
You're good.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about Magic a lot, and I know that you guys have a background with Magic as well. Obviously, Secrets of Fortune is trying to circumvent and/or bring something to the table when it comes to the trading card game, right? Which hats off to you guys, by the way. It's a difficult space, the trading card game, and I know that you guys are trying to take some steps to differentiate yourselves. So I just want to give you a pat on the back and say good on you.
Thank you very much. We've been doing a lot of thinking and what we dislike about trading card games and trying to, like you said, circumnavigate that and try to come up with new solutions to the table. But I think it's a testament though to Magic, and we should always take our hats off to Magic that it is such a robust game that it essentially makes you imagine other games. I heard Tim Rogers express this about Doom, that Doom had so much imagination put into it and so much potential put into it that you could describe everything that comes after Doom as being Doom but this. Like Mario 64, Doom but jumping.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit. We were at one point going to do an episode comparing Magic to The Simpsons, and having to follow Magic as a card game designer is like following The Simpsons as an animator. Yeah, they've just done so much, and the love is there for sure. But for me, one of the things about Magic is just trying to bring more people into the game. There is definitely a barrier to entry there that we were trying to circumvent. I wanted to ask you a question while we're on the topic of Token Terrors,
Sure.
though. So one of the selling points I think I've heard you kind of put forth about Token Terrors is near perfect information. And I wanted to ask you, how do you view the role of RNG in games? Do you feel like there's a place for it. Obviously, Magic has a fair amount of
So
RNG. Yeah. So, I mean, how did you, decide to do something with near perfect information? How do you think about the balance between perfect information and RNG? What does that look like in your mind?
I think it really comes down to what your values are when it comes to designing a game and the kind of experience that you want to deliver to people who decide to open up that box or get that game to the table. And for me, what's really important is player agency. I don't want to ever feel like the game provided a condition where I had 0% control over the outcome. I think that is a big bummer because you can get into some situations where you spent 40 minutes doing something and at the end, 2 or 3 of the last round's decisions are just wiped away because a card gets top decked or a dice outcome comes out a certain way. However, that being said, I think some amount of random input has to be present because there's like this dopamine feed that comes with gambling, and I think that like some of the best, most popular games that exist that are just very talked about and very celebrated in the space are doing a balancing act between player agency, decision space, and just that right amount of random input, whether it's a die roll or whether it's, drawing cards off the top of a deck or whatever it might look like. And finding that balance and matching them so that you can get that sensation of like you're sort of doing low-key gambling, but you also are like controlling the outcome and making meaningful decisions that make you feel like you're a smart winner. That's the mixture you're trying to seek out when you're bringing your design from beginning to end, and when eventually when you try to take it to market.
Yeah, I've often said, because when I think of perfect information in games, the first game that comes to mind is chess, which is a game I'm not super fond of myself, because it's like it's all out there. You basically, if you lose, it's your own fault. There's nothing to be like to fall back on as like a little pillow to fall into. And I think that's where sometimes random generation can really benefit. The other side, the losing player, can kind of be like, well, they got lucky.
Sure.
And I think that's been beneficial to Magic the Gathering specifically, is like, you know what, I missed my land drops. I wasn't top. I was like mana screwed, or I was mana flooded. Something like that can happen. And you can, like, every now and then a game loss wasn't your fault, and it wasn't your opponent's. It wasn't your opponent beating you. It was that, the odds were ever not in your favor.
Or your mana draw was fine. And guess what? That other person across the table got the perfect opening hand. Like,
Yeah.
I see that happen all the time where I'm like, how is this combo happening on turn 4 already? This is crazy to me, because they're either the whole deck has got 4 copies of each of these cards in it, or they're just hella lucky. They just got really lucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can, like I said, it's almost a pillow to fall into when those sorts of things happen. It's like, man, it wasn't my day. And you can like put it up to that. Versus chess, it's just like, well, damn, I'm dumb.
Yeah, I mean, what we try to do with token terrors is, so for me as a designer, like, theme is like almost the most important thing, because I want the thematic side of what the game is bringing as a world and a vision to correlate as much mechanically as it possibly can, so that you can draw that thread between, like, for example, in Token Terror Season 2, we're going to be introducing Ghosts as a playable faction, and Ghosts have a passive ability that costs no action points, no command points, called Intangible, where they can move through and battle through other objects, and if they are in the fresh state, they're able to evade any kind of attack. So that includes basic melee attacks and range attacks. So this is just... It seems really powerful, especially compared to the stuff we see in Season 1, and it is very handy. But it's because Ghosts are not tangible. They're a phantasmal form, and if you are running straight at it and it's looking at you, try to swing an axe through its head, it's going to pass right through it, right? So doing stuff like that. And as far as like what we try to do with the random input, it really comes up again because of theme. The only time you really roll dice in Token Terrors for right now is when you're trying to resolve whether or not a range attack hits. If an object is flying across a battlefield and it's supposed to hit a target from a distance, there's always a chance that the target is going to see it coming before it happens, or something's going to prevent that range attack from landing. So you roll a d6 to determine whether or not range attacks hit.
I like
Thank
that. And that's something that resonates with us as well, because we're very, very obsessed with making sure that the flavor and the mechanics align as much as possible in X Seekers. And I wanted to ask you, from a design perspective, do you more often find mechanics guiding you towards the flavor or flavor guiding you towards the mechanics? Where do you typically find yourself starting? Is it an equal split? What does that look like for you?
Typically speaking, it's really been a 50-50 mix for me. I had an idea for a design called Destroy the Castle. I was taking a shit, and I thought, and for whatever, I was taking a shit. I was scrolling through Instagram, and I don't know what it was. I saw probably somebody was doing a video about dice or something, and I was thinking about how I'd never seen a game where you stack up dice with 9 on the bottom, 4 above that, and 1 above that, where it makes like a pyramid castle kind of shape. And just that idea of stacking up dice in a tower turned into this game called Destroy the Castle. That's a dexterity battle game for 2 players. It's like a whole. That was mechanics first, right? But then I think about like Black Mold, where I had the idea to have your turn's duration last as long as you can physically hold your breath, and the title immediately followed that thought. And because I had been playing Last of Us and we couldn't breathe safely outside because there was COVID, so this mushroom world respiratory infection idea came about, and those 2 things almost happened simultaneously, and then we built the rest of the game out from that initial concept.
That's super sweet. I have to say, one of the things that impresses me about Terrible Games is I feel like you have some of the most novel concepts. Like I feel like when I hear about what you're doing in the game design space, I'm like, wow, these guys are really doing stuff that's innovative. Like holding your breath to determine the length of a term. I think that's super
Thank
sweet.
you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, we're trying to, just try to differentiate ourselves as much as we can without, getting too crazy. Obviously, as you guys are entering the space and getting into the industry, it's very active. There's a lot of people who are putting stuff out there. There's a lot of different, different companies coming out every day, new games coming out every day. So anything we can do to sort of like get people to look in our direction is kind of where we're at. And we also, we want to make games that we enjoy and that we hope other people will also enjoy if they kind of meet our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like maybe a through line, because the other cool thing that you guys have done a lot is create the soundtracks for your games, which again is very immersive. It's just, how do you take the game experience and add to it? How do you create an experience that isn't just moving pieces on a board? How do you make it more immersive? And you guys are really doing cool things in that space.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Sweet. So one of the things I wanted to ask you before we get too far away from Magic is how excited are you for the Marvel Magic crossover?
Oh my God, dude! Dusk. Okay, first of all, before we get into the Marvel, Dusk.
Okay.
I want to talk about Duskborn really quick. Have you all seen anything about this yet?
No, what is
Dusk?
it? Oh, is this?
This is a new original set. It's a new plane called Duskborn. It has some weird skeletal Phyrexian looking Mega Queen as the art. It looks like a weird Phyrexian angel thing. And this is gonna, from what I understand, and I might be speaking out of school. It's a labyrinthine mansion that has an 80s and 90s slasher horror motif.
Ooh.
Like trapped in a gigantic mansion with Cenobites is what I get from what I've heard so far.
Oh,
and
I love that.
This set concept just is checking so many boxes for me. I can't. When Innistrad first came out, I was like, yes, this is so awesome. Werewolves, vampires. I'm getting the same feeling, and I love Innistrad. Innistrad is hands down probably my favorite setting of all time in Magic. Probably followed very closely by oh my gosh, now it's slipping my mind. The Egyptian one, Amonkhet. Yeah.
What a great set.
Amonkhet or Hour of Devastation? Which one did you like?
I like
better?
the first one. I liked the first Amonkhet.
Very
also,
fast
we're going back to
format.
Ixalan, boys. Are y'all ready? It's coming up. Pre-release weekend is what, this weekend or the one after?
I don't know. That's it's close though. I see all the spoilers.
But yeah, I think the Marvel thing is going to be great. I'll be really, really interested to see what they do. I got into a conversation with somebody on TikTok because I was making my own fake cards, and I guess Doctor Strange could be a planeswalker. America Chavez has to be a planeswalker, right? So if we get a whole set out of this, it'll be really cool to kind of see what they do. I'm picturing, man, like think about a Galactus ETB effect where just all mana gets destroyed immediately. But
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, just destroy all
Yep.
lands. Like it would justify them dusting off the, land destruction, like Armageddon.
I get the feeling that Marvel is not going to be a one and done. I have a feeling Marvel is going to be its whole. I think it's going to be like a Magic cinematic universe, right? Like I feel like I don't know how you would say it, but they're probably going to go down a whole rabbit hole because there's just so much depth to go
Yeah.
into with Marvel. There's no way. Here's my question for you though. What card that you're pretty sure they're not going to do? What character do you think's not going
Speedball.
to get a card that you really want to see?
They won't make a speedball
Okay.
card.
Can we see them? Are we going to expect to see one of those on your TikTok
Oh,
account sometime
yes.
soon?
Absolutely. I'm gonna do Speedball. I need to do less X-Men. I'm really an X-Men person. But out of the set, I would love to see like Omega Red. I want to see some weird stuff. Let's see Strong Guy.
Yeah.
Let's see
Just
Puck.
curious, did you play Marvel Snap at all?
I had to stop.
Me too.
It was affecting me in a way that I did not like, and I had to. I also acknowledged that the game was being talked about. The meta surrounding it was really frustrating, and the way that people were talking about it, they were talking about it like it was a game that was done, and it's not. It's constantly being tweaked, and the fact that the game is being balanced through active testing as they're releasing new sets and taking people's money is crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, that may just be the norm
Yep.
now, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was basically, for me, Marvel Snap was like, I realized that it was eating up my evenings that I could be spending working on X Seekers of Fortune and other things like this. So I just had to cold turkey it. I was just like, done. I can't be half in, half out. If I'm playing, I have to play every day because of the rewards, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, I have that conversation about Magic Arena on like a weekly basis with myself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Like, there have been periods in my life where I don't play Magic at all, and it's because when I do play Magic, there's not room for anything else. Like, I don't read, I don't write, I don't do anything but play Magic, and so sometimes I have to take a break, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm still following it and still excited by it, but yeah, it's just like I'm like. It's like the habit in the corner that I'm like,
Well,
I know I'm going to come back. I just don't know when.
So with that in mind, I don't know about you guys, but like recently we just moved to a new neighborhood, and there's this kid who lives across the street, and I found out he's a war gamer and he plays Warhammer. He's like, and I was like, great. I was talking with his mother, and she was asking me about the games. I was loading stuff into a car, and I was like, well, if your son plays Warhammer, I'd love to hear what he thinks about our game. Our game is trying to scratch some itches for Warhammer, but do it in a shorter amount of time, and everything's in the box and da-da-da. So he played it, totally loved it, and now I have this playtesting buddy across the street.
Oh, that's amazing.
And for me, like, I never get tired of playing Token Terrors. You guys are talking about getting, Seekers of Fortune out there. Are you guys still having a ton of fun, like, developing the game, and do you get it to the table a lot and, like, play test and kick the wheels a little bit?
100%. Playtesting, I think, is the thing that it's one of the things that I'm most preoccupied with is getting the right people, collecting the right data. I actually wanted to ask you about that as someone who's got a lot more experience. And one of the things is, how has your mindset changed around playtesting when you from early in the process to the late stage? Because, we're in the late stage, and I think that there is a hesitancy to make too drastic of a change at this stage because it's going to throw a whole system out of balance. And then you have to kind of add that much more time to development. But at the same time, you don't want to ship something that's not ready to be shipped. So how do you think about late stage playtesting versus early on?
Make those changes. Absolutely. If there's a change that's sticking with you and you're sort of grappling with whether or not you should do it, I would make every accommodation to playtest that change and see where it takes you. Because we had that exact thing happen to us. We had our turn phases for Token Terrors were relying on this entire thing where like you would effectively exhaust a unit after you used it, and it wouldn't become refreshed until after everything you controlled had been exhausted. And and it played to the tempo of the game. It also played to the action point economy. It did all this stuff, and we'd been playing it like that for years before release. And we were 3 months out from release. And the co-designer, Phil Docolo, came in and was like, how about this? How about you can refresh everything at the top of every turn? And I was like, we're going to have to rewrite a bunch of stuff. Like, it's going to be crazy. He was like, well, just try it and see what it's like. And, yeah, we had to go back and, like, make changes to like 30 or 40% of the rule booklet. All the asymmetric abilities had to be tweaked slightly, but we made the change and it made the game 35-40% better. It's just we
wow.
really felt like we had what we wanted after we made that last minute change, and it was uncomfortable because it really was like far reaching kind of thing that required a lot of like tinkering and weird stuff. But after we got through it, I was like, finally, like I feel really good about sending this to market and going to Kickstarter with it now, because this really feels right. It just made the game faster. It made it just better.
Nice.
No, that's great to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
we definitely have experienced little bits of, hey, let's make this change that we're hesitant about, and then you make it, and the game plays great, and you almost forget how the game was before. But we definitely want to get as much input as we can right now, because you also want to make sure you have a lot of different people you're playtesting with, so that you're not tuning to someone's preferences as opposed to what your general market is looking at. So how have you found playtesters? What is your method of seeking people to playtest?
So we had a weekly residency at a friendly local game store called No Land Beyond when they were first opening up. I had actually heard through the grapevine that they were going to open a Magic the Gathering spot, because they had like a weekly social club that was meeting at bars around town, and they decided to just take it to the next step and open up their own store.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it was like they had enough people in their weekly meetup that they were like, we should just open our own game store. I found out, I took a meeting with them, and I kind of tried to partner with them, because I was like, these guys are cool. They want to have a bar and food license. They're going to have board games. They're going to do Magic the Gathering. So cool. This is all lining up. So we did a weekly residency with them for like 6 or 7 months before the Kickstarter launch. And then local colleges sometimes will do board game club meetups, or they'll have little board game conventions. We've done things like that. We've done free comic book day. Any sort of like tabling event we could get to, we would collect email signups, and you can also cold call friendly local game stores and see if you can do a demo day. And like, it's tough because promoting that stuff, people come to the game store to play the games they already like. It's really hard to like try to cold sell somebody who's there to play Warhammer all afternoon, or who's there for a Magic event or a Pokemon event or whatever it is. But, that visibility in the community sometimes can be helpful. It can extend a little bit, because if they see you once at that one time, and then they hear about you or see you again, they kind of remember, and they're like, oh yeah, right. So this person's like in it to win it. They're invested. Also, don't underestimate the power of pizza. I did an event where I bought a 30 rack of beer and a bunch of pizzas from Little Caesars, and I posted to Reddit and Facebook that was like, free beer and pizza if you play test our board game. And like,
was that in a shop?
Yeah,
Or
that was in the
like,
basement. That was in the
house?
basement of No Land Beyond. They let me use the basement.
Oh,
That's sweet.
yeah. They were
That's
like,
a
don't
really-
get that pizza grease up
Yeah.
here.
Well, the basement's outfitted with a bunch of tables for their Friday Night Magic and stuff like that. But
Okay.
I mean,
that's like the play zone.
Yeah,
Go down
yeah.
to the
Yep,
basement.
yep.
Okay.
but yeah, like
All right.
like
I hope-
16 or 17 people came out, and we got like a good hour and a half of playtesting. Everybody had a great time.
Nice.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to take up the pizza offer. Yeah, I think the problem, I wouldn't say problem, but I think the hurdle that Danny and I are running into is we want to work with game stores that are excited to work with us. And so, we love local game stores, but, oftentimes, they got 100 things going on, and Magic is obviously the big moneymaker. So they don't necessarily perk up with somebody walking in saying they have a new game, because I'm sure they also hear that all the time. And there's a huge difference between somebody who thinks they've made a game, and I'm sure they deal with a lot of people who are all talk.
Sure.
And so they sort of like have to put up their defenses when somebody walks in and says, "Oh, I made a game and here it is."
I mean,
You
Joel,
know.
I'll tell you straight up, it doesn't change if you have a game that has proof of concept because you sold $30,000 worth of it on Kickstarter. I walk into a game store with a finished game made by a local designer and try to pitch to store owners and get turned down more than half the time.
Wow. That's
I
crazy.
get ghosted on emails. And here's the thing, it's because there's a couple different reasons. Number one, the same way as with the board game design industry, the margins, looking out to the, looking in from the outside, people think that if you raise $2 million on Kickstarter, you got it made. You're Scrooge McDuck. That's not really true. Not that we've done numbers like that.
Not at all.
Yeah, but being successful in this industry, it only comes with scale, and that kind of scale, there's just a mountain to climb for an indie publisher who wants to do that. I mean, you got to hit a lottery ticket, or you got to have a marketing team or something like that. And for these board game store owners, their margins are also tough because they're relying on Magic for a lot of stuff. And the other thing is like, because they have so much to deal with, their distribution stream is something that they already have locked in. Like if they can't order it through their distributor, they just by merit of that alone, they might just be like, nah, I can walk into a game store and go, hey man, I'll deliver the first case at no cost by hand, no shipping. And they're like, all right, but if I need more, like, what am I supposed to do? Email you personally? Like, I need to be able to order this at the top of the month out of my distribution chain. Like, that's,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, ease of doing business is huge,
Yep.
and just like with indie publishers, where everyone's working with limited resources and trying to compete with the AAA studios, you've got these local game stores competing with Amazon, Target, Walmart, and they're just like, hey, I want to support you, but at the same time, I'm having trouble keeping the lights on. I'm going to do what's easy, and so
Yeah.
you know, it's a challenge, and I know that you've dealt with it a lot more than we have. But on the topic of the AAA studios, I mean, what do you feel like a lot of players of games, hobbyists, don't fully appreciate right now about what it means to be an indie publisher of games?
Oof. I mean, I think that there's this expectation that is uniformly thrust upon the entire industry and the hobby writ large, that a certain level of quality should be met. And the problem is that there's no supporting structures for getting the word out or getting the kind of mass appeal support that you need for your indie title in order to bring it up to meet that bar. You know, I was watching coverage today for a bunch of stuff releasing this month, and every content creator from the 2,000 person follower to the channels with 30, 40, 50,000 followers are all talking about the same 5 games launching in the same week by the same publishers. And there isn't like a staff pick indie pub spotlight. There isn't any big channels like Shut Up and Sit Down or No Pun Included, or I mean the Dice Tower, for all they do, a lot of their stuff isn't time sensitive. They're not going to help promote a Kickstarter unless you pay them. And they have all of these media creators have absolutely no qualms whatsoever throwing coverage at companies that do not need it. That just do not.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because that's what gets them the eyeballs. It's like, I don't know if I'm naming the right names, but fantasy, it's like you're more likely to get somebody to click on the latest news about Fantasy Flight Games' most recent release, or heaven forbid Hasbro's, versus like Terrible Games'
Sure.
most recent release.
Speaking of games that we should probably give a little shout out to, Apothecary's on Kickstarter now as
sure.
well, and people should support Nick at the same time they're supporting you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the indie publishers got to stick together. I mean, it's the only way. We have a few thousand each, but if we all stick together and help each other out, hopefully we have a little more reach than we would otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The community building part of it is huge, and it can be tough. But the thing is like a lot of these indie publishers are, if not meeting the bar, they're getting very close, right? And I mean, we all want to strive to like do the best we can, and we would just have a lot more resources and a lot more ability to execute on a higher level if we were just able to get our games and our messaging out to a wider audience. It's kind of why I'm like on here talking with you guys, but also because I just love kicking the can around on industry stuff also.
Well, we found a love in that as well. Well, I mean, we've brought up Kickstarter so far. Maybe we should delve a little bit more into your Kickstarter experiences, because how many have you done at this point? 2 or 3?
Valka will be our 4th release on Kickstarter.
So you've done 3 already, and this will be your 4th. Oh wait, I got to do my. Okay.
Token Terrorism, Black Mold. What's the
Repugnant, the world's most disgusting TTRPG.
Oh, Repugnant. Okay, cool.
Man, I'm looking forward to seeing more about that.
Yeah. Please do. Yep. It's a total subversion of the RPG genre was kind of the idea there.
Okay. Well, as you know, we're probably looking down the barrel of a Kickstarter. Well, ours is a little bit further down. You're looking down the barrel. We see it in the horizon. You've gone through 3 of them so far. I guess anything high level you want to say in general about them? Is there any particular highs and lows? A lack of sleep, I understand, is something that comes with them. Yeah, what would you have to say about the process?
For a lot of times when I got this question in the past, I would say stuff about doing A/B testing for ads and optimizing your ads and stuff. I recently saw
Yeah.
a press or a blog entry from an indie publisher that was talking about how like they're just not going to pay for ads anymore because they don't want to give money to these awful social media companies that aren't actually helping them anyway. Like this pay to play sort of, you have to optimize clicks to get, your click conversion under 10 cents and all this stuff. And I think I'm going to borrow a page from their book because it's tough to optimize ads. You're getting cold calls from marketing people. So put all that away. The community side of it is really where you should be investing. And I know it's hard because you have to really, you have to court and maintain that audience. And you need to let them know that you exist and you need to engage with them on a regular basis in order to keep their attention. But I need to do better at that. And I would also say, know when to contract out. Don't be afraid to delay your release date. Nobody cares if you announced already. You can just do it later. And it's not a big deal. And yeah, being mindful of preserving your mental health through not getting too stressed and not putting too much of your self-value on the chopping block when it comes to the way your project performs is huge. It takes a long time to figure out how to do that. I don't think I've really figured it out yet. I'm both very excited and also slightly dreading this upcoming campaign because it really does it magnifies things. It's crazy.
Sounds like we need to start a Kickstarter support group. Yeah.
Yeah,
People going through Kickstarter probably need a couple of people to talk to late at night.
That's the community. Another side, another reason for the community building right there is to go through, to have people to turn to with experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to Jack about it as well, and I know he just barely got Serial Killer. Like such a wonderful, concept. Like one of those things where it's like nobody's done this before, and it's like the most genius concept you've ever seen. And he still had a hard time getting past what was it, $26,000.
He had I think he had a $20,000 goal. He funded in the last 48 hours.
Was it his first project?
And
Yes.
was,
That's there isn't really a way to attribute those kinds of things, but if I had to take a guess, that would probably be why I would say it probably struggled to hit its funding goal initially, is because 20 G's for a first-time creator is nothing to cough at.
Yeah, that's a lot.
A lot of creators. I mean, I don't know if you all have heard this common refrain for people who are just entering the space, and I don't know how much components or how much actual physical product you guys are going to be offering with Seekers of Fortune, but a great entry point for anybody who wants to get into the industry and be self-publisher is to make a card game. Do something small.
Yep.
Ask for like a $2,000 or less funding goal. Put out something that costs under $2 or $3 to actually manufacture overseas, or something that you can make yourself if you can do something like that, and just take your concept from idea to funded project and deliver it and keep it small, because all the experience you get from running that first campaign and fulfilling it and all that other stuff, that's going to tee you up to be really successful for that bigger project where you need that $20,000 or that $30,000 ask.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. We are just cards in a box. So
Instruction
hopefully,
booklet, maybe.
but
Maybe just
hopefully
maybe just a QR code on the back of the box. Is that? I got a question. Is that something that you have any opinions about, like the idea of like just doing the instructions via the website, or do you think that there's a place for the old school instruction manual?
If you optimize that rule text to be on someone's phone, fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that the rule booklet is by extension a part of like the thematic feel. Like to me, a board game doesn't really feel complete without a rule booklet. I like thumbing through the rule booklet. I like seeing little footnote art pieces and annotations and visual aids and all these things. If the rules are super duper simple and you want to put them on a phone or put them on a QR code, I don't have a huge problem with that. But I do like, there is a certain amount of artistry and suffering that comes with making a rule booklet. And for other people to get away with not doing it doesn't feel fair to me. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit like trying to fit all the pieces in like one of those puzzles where you're like, they all fit together somehow. You're just not sure, how to get them all to get in there.
For me, I was just going to say the nostalgia. Yeah. There's a nostalgia factor to it too, where it used to be back in the day with video games. Like most of the lore would come from the instruction booklet. There's some wild stuff about the Mario universe you'd only understand if you read the instruction manual to the first Super Mario Brothers. And I do feel like there's a little bit of magic lost in the current game design space, video games specifically. But it's like one of those things. They can put everything into the game. They don't have to, spell out the lore in the instruction manual because they have plenty of gigabytes worth of data to work with. So they just don't need it anymore. But it kind of loses something because of that. Versus in tabletop gaming, it will always be mostly abstracted. It's not a literal, it's not a literal gameplay experience or as close to literal as video games get to be. So you're always going to have a space to be like, explain, well, the reason this mechanic exists is to represent this idea.
Yeah.
It's also an opportunity to be really immersive with, again, talking about immersion. If you just have a QR code, it takes you out of it. I mean, there's lots of opportunities to infuse lore and do different things. John, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh no, you just reminded me of something that I've been aspiring to for a while. That's been kicking around in my head, thinking about video games and rules and introducing people to games. Is I've always wanted to figure out a way to make a solo game or possibly a multiplayer game where you guys ever played Mega Man X?
Yes.
Mega Man X. In the first level, there's a video essay about this on YouTube. In the first level, everything you need to know about playing Mega Man X, the game presents you with obstacles and small things that you need to do, and it teaches you all the button commands and everything you need in order to play the game without explicitly telling you. It just puts you in situations where you have to learn how to wall jump, and you have to learn how to do an X-charge shot, right? Think about a solo game where setting up the game is part of the game, right?
Very cool.
A game where the first thing you see when you open the rule booklet is like, don't take anything out of the box yet. You need to take things out in this order, and you're meeting objectives and learning the mechanism of the game while you're actually putting it on the table.
I really like that idea. Yeah. Danny and I had the idea of possibly blockading some of the Action X cards, or I'm not sure if maybe it was me more having this idea and Danny just nodding and smiling, but the idea of like putting the Action X cards in the box inside of booster packs and being like, open this Action X deck first, and you play with these cards, and when you're comfortable with these cards, then open the next one and shuffle them in together.
Yeah.
So that way it's like, has a complexity build, and then once you're playing with all the Action X cards, now you're playing the full game. Now you can join us for tournaments and things like that.
Absolutely. And I was speaking of tournaments because it's something that we want to do also, but just like looking at like what Flesh and Blood has done to enter the market, and how they are sort of like they're entering the space that Magic the Gathering and Pokemon sort of inhabits to some degree. I think that's also one of the big challenges for games like yours and ours is that stuff that with a near perfect information game and a game that is really well suited for head-to-head combat. Getting that support from the community where, I had talked to another creator recently. It was Blue Falcon Games. It was Corey over at Blue Falcon. And he was telling me about basically this like ambassador program that he does where he puts forth X number of hours. I think they're called like meetings or shows or he does demonstrations basically where he goes to a game store for like 2 or 3 hours and he clocks these different events that he promotes himself, that he attends and staffs, where he teaches the game and has people play the game. And after he clocks a certain number of visits, he gets a free copy of this game, like a $40 or $60 board game, but he gets a free copy from the publisher. And like ideas like that, but really like figuring out ways to evangelize your system and get them in front of people for tournament settings so they feel incentivized to care about your rules and get involved in the game. That's one of the biggest challenges that I've come against. And it's really just a matter of time and resources, but it's where we need to take Token Terrors in order for it to really get a foothold and become, more successful outside of our social reach and our personal sphere of people who support what we do already.
I think sometimes it's just a matter of keying in on one LGS and just showing up week after week and really building that community. We saw that with Bryant, who was a guest a couple of episodes back. There's one store in particular where he can play Alpha Clash. I don't know if Alpha Clash is on your radar yet.
I've heard of it.
But it's another emergent TCG, and how hard is it to play a brand new TCG? So there's one store there that seems to be playing it. And for us, we had quite a bit of luck with a store in Houston called Uncanny Comics, where when we went and demoed the game, a group of people kind of took to it, and then we went back a month later. And the more I do this and the more we get turned away from other friendly local game stores, the more I realize, hey, when you find somebody who shows some interest in your game, you just pour everything you can into like building something self-sustaining there.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about, like, we've talked about the idea of trying to get them into league play. In fact, it's probably about time for us to show back up at Uncanny Comics and Games here real soon. Something crossed my mind when you were talking. Oh, I wanted to ask, is Token Terrors available to play on any like online or digital tabletops, like Tabletop
Yeah,
Simulator?
it's on TTS.
TTS. Okay, well, we're going to have to play that here real soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to
Yeah.
play it. And maybe if you have time, maybe we can play it in person at PAX. That'd
Yeah,
be
I'd love
sweet.
to. That'd be great.
I'd love
Oh,
to play Valka as
sure.
well.
Yeah,
Maybe
whichever
we
one
should
you
talk-
whichever one you want to show off. We'll Danny will point his TikTok device at it, and you're going to go super viral.
Yeah,
think
exclusive announcement for PAX. I haven't talked about it yet publicly.
Oh,
So regarding Token Terrors, we had done this thing in the season 1 offering where we did a color variant version of the goblins and just made them a 7th bonus faction called the Swamplands. They come with their own artwork, their own set of special skills, and I was like, we should do blind bags, but with all the factions from season 1. So we're gonna release 5 new factions at season 1, or from season 1, that are color variant alternate factions called Outcasts. And they're going to be
Wow.
$10 a bag. You don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be either translucent orange firebirds or the blue and black revenants, the copper ornithopters. They all have their own rule sets, their own artwork, and an updated gatefold 4-panel pamphlet with all of our key phrases and a quick little cheat sheet to get them right on the table. And we're going to have them at PAX. It's the first time they're coming out, and I'm excited to actually run them and do some demos and stuff with them because, like, the public hasn't seen them a whole lot. But it's going to be exciting stuff. I'm like really stoked to see how they do.
That sounds amazing, and $10 is a great price point
Thank
for
you.
that. I mean, like you said, there's so many great use cases beyond just playing Token Terrors. If you want to play Magic and have an Ornithopter
Yeah.
token, there you
Yeah,
go. There's plenty of Thropter token needs. Well,
That's
Valka. I wanted to ask about Valka, Joel. Was there something you wanted to say before we jump into Valka? Because
I mean, it's just an idea that I think you and I had a while ago, which is like, and I think you sort of hit on it, was like the idea of making game pieces for your game that could translate over to being game pieces of other more popular games. I don't know, like what you said, like having the Thopter tokens in Token Terrors that you could bring over to Magic the Gathering, and it's almost like you're not only selling your own unique tokens, but you're also making a game around it. I don't know, just something that crossed my mind. I think I had joked around about the idea of like printing cards that are secretly proxies for like other cards in Magic, and it's just like, yeah, like, slide this X Seekers of Fortune card into your deck and everybody will understand that it's like a proxy for this super expensive card that nobody wants to buy.
Yeah.
yeah, that's sweet. And you've talked a little bit, John, I think, about even using the tokens for TTRPGs, and I think that's another exciting thing. I mean, you play Token Terrors with your friends, but maybe you want to collect the tokens individually for other purposes. So there's plenty of reasons to stock up on those at PAX, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, one thing that I would really like, and I know that other people in the design world do this all the time, where they basically like cannibalize a game they already have and take its pieces to do other stuff with them for their own personal design needs. Token Terrors are ready to be the miniatures that you don't want to pay for someone to sculpt for you. And I kind of threw around this idea before. I had like loosely mentioned it in the board game design lab, where I was like, hey, we already own the steel molds for our miniatures. If you have a game that has goblins and soldiers and other generic fantasy guys, like, we can license our Token Terrors miniatures to your game for like a small fee, because you don't have to pay any of the molding costs or have any of the steel plates paid for. Like, we can sell them to you at a slight markup to cost if you have a game that needs a bunch of goblins, soldiers, elves, fill in the blank. If we already have the mold for it, like, we can just license it to other games. But no takers yet. I haven't been like super loud about it, but I feel like it would probably work, because you can inject them in any color you want. Like, they still like visually function in the way that you need them to.
Yeah.
Well, PAX might be a good opportunity to get the word out on that. And I think when people see the product and get to play with them and know that they have that opportunity,
Yeah.
I think maybe start getting some
Maybe.
takers.
Well, if I remember correctly, that is not kind of how Games Workshop started out. They were making miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons, and they were just like, well, we should sell a game that these miniatures also play with.
Really?
I think that's what I heard through the grapevine.
That's pretty cool.
So
Yeah.
So Valka, let's talk
Sure.
Valka here because I'm super into it. So high level, what is Valka? How take us to the world of Valka?
Sure. So Valka is a strange post-apocalyptic wasteland that's inhabited by all of these really weird, unique creatures, barbarians, knights, the lizard men, tree beasts, etc., etc. And they're all through the creative lens of this visionary illustrator, musician, and artist based out of Australia named Brooke Penrose. The gameplay is you draw 10 cards at the top of the game. You set two horizontal 4-card tableaus. One is further away from you. That's going to be your frontline forces, and that can be up to 4 fighters. And then there's the backline tableau, which is 4 cards that are just beneath them, and they're closest to you. You reveal all of your cards at the top of the game, and what you're going to be doing on your turn is any of these things. I'll just say up front that there's no hand limit, there's no card costs, and there's no action points in this game. Your backline is going to be infinitely editable. You can add buff cards to give them stat bonuses. You can play event cards anytime you want during your turn. And anything in your backline can be moved around, edited, rearranged, returned to hand, etc., etc. But your front line is set. And when your front line is destroyed by enemy attacks, your backline instantly becomes your front line. It can happen, at any time. If you have done some set collection and gotten multiple members of the same warband in your back line, when they enter the front line, their warband boon will trigger, and these are these devastating, game-breaking special abilities that each warband has that really gives you an edge in the battle. It's a game really about tempo control and sort of reading the room. There's a little bit of negotiation. There is there's some good decision space in the way that you attack because there's different ways that you can assign damage to things. You can do a true strike if your strike score just exceeds the defense score of your target. If it doesn't exceed it, you can combine the strike score of 2 frontline fighters in order to deal 1 damage to the intended target. If you are too weak to immediately deal a chance or true strike, you can do a chance strike and roll a dice about it, and you're going to add the outcome of those dice rolls to the static stats that are on the card. If you're victorious, you deal a damage. If you fail, you take a damage. If you both fail, you both take a damage. And then you can also do what's called a reckless strike. So if you have a fighter in your front line that only has 1 health left, you can just sack it and deal 1 damage to any target.
Oh, that's sweet. From your perspective, like the target, like who's going to want to play Valka the most? Like who's your who are you thinking about when you design this game?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I actually didn't design it. I've just been a developer on this one because the artwork just really grabbed me right away, and I kind of felt like the aesthetic and sensibilities that Brooke exhibited in the artwork that I saw while I was cruising social media really aligned well with our brand and my style as an illustrator and artist as well. And from what I understand, Brooke actually designed this game with his son while they were waiting for other people to show up for D&D. So he wanted to sort of like have a D&D light experience that was like fairly straightforward and simple. I tried to be transparent and open with Brooke throughout the development process that I wasn't going to impose too much of my Magic the Gathering brain on this game because I really liked the purity of the frontline backline system, and the amount of dice rolling that he initially had I felt it just left a little bit too much to chance. And he had already done the war bands, but strangely he didn't have any asymmetric abilities planned. So I just wanted to bring a little bit more to the table as far as the mechanism went, and I think we ended up with something really cool. The target audience is people who want to have a game that is a feast for the eyes, a game that is a pub style game, I dare say, a beer and pretzels kind of loud voices around a table having a good time. People being boisterous and describing attacks when their attacks land. Cool kind of gotcha moments where people are playing event cards at really inopportune times for the rest of the table. People who want something that kind of feels like a trading card game, but is absolutely not a trading card game. It kind of has the same sensation with, I think there's over like 50 or so unique pieces of illustrations for each of the fighters. So every single fighter is different. And you're doing some light set collection. So, yeah, it's sort of scratching that itch a little bit, but there isn't like booster packs or rares or anything like that.
That's great.
Thanks.
And Brooke did all the art for the game?
Yeah.
Is that... Yeah, it's incredible art. I really enjoy that style, and I think that's also part of the. When I first saw it, I assumed that it was something that was consistent with everything else that you all have done, because, like you said, it's very on
Thank
brand.
you. Yeah, I often I'll post stuff about Valka, and people are like, "Dude, this artwork is so sick. Good job." And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree with you. I I didn't make it though, not this time."
Is this Brooks' first game?
Yes, he ran a campaign for a tarot set that did really well last year, called Tarot of the Crystal World, and that also featured all of his artwork. He did an original piece of art for every single tarot card. But yeah, like I said, I had reached out to him just asking him what his plans were on releasing the game and sort of gave him some information on our background as a publisher and told him I was interested in working on it. And we've just kind of been on this journey together for the last 2 or so years, getting the solo game figured out. And, I've been like the liaison and logistics person for getting the manufacturing stuff figured out and playtesting and getting the word out about it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's finally coming around. In about a week, we're going to be on Kickstarter with this thing.
That's
Nice.
amazing. I'm super excited to
Thank
back
you,
it.
thank
I
you.
think it's going to be
I'm gonna have
100%.
to get on myself and back it. I need to start doing, the pay it, kind of pay it forward, or whatever the reverse of that, putting in some good karma into Kickstarter.
Oh, for me, it's purely selfish. I just want to play it.
Do you guys have you guys
I do too. This is one I'd actually really like to back. I mean, everything you're saying. Yeah, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but for some reason, it was giving me a sense of like an RTS style, like having some RTS elements to it as well, like Warcraft. I don't know why, but I was getting that from your pitch.
some people who have played it have are y'all familiar with Gwent from the Witcher game?
Yes.
I'm not
They
very
kind of
good.
compare it to that, but instead of lanes, instead of there being a separation of lanes for assigning damage, it's just everything that's on the top shelf. Four cards on top are the front line, 4 cards beneath them are the back line. And the decision space that happens within the game is you're going to look at your hand and you're going to go, okay, I can place all these guys into the front line now, and if I do that and they all get squashed early, I'm kind of out on an island for the rest of the game unless I draw really well. So you have to make a determination and a judgment based on what else is on the table, involving like the stats that your opponents have, because stat ratings range from 1 to 3, and these like generals that come out that are 3s across the board can be a problem if you don't sort of make some plans and do things properly.
I'd imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's this interesting dynamic, it would seem, between wanting to destroy your opponent's front line, but also not necessarily wanting to have the back line come into play at that particular moment because of the board state. Is there some of that, hey, I need to pick my spot here because it would not be good for the back line that is currently out there to show up at this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the stuff that I wanted to do to, try to get like a satisfying sort of feel out of the gameplay, which I think we can all sort of appreciate because we all play Magic, is setting up these completely internal, unspoken micro win conditions that you are playing you're like by yourself, basically. Like you're setting these little goalposts for yourself within the game, and you're leading up to this moment that you have planned, that you have tried to set up. And when it pays off, it doesn't mean you win the game, but it means that you have accomplished this thing that's getting you a little bit closer to winning the game, right? And yeah, that's what I sort of wanted to angle towards. I mean, kind of with Token Terrors, but with this game certainly, was to give you a little bit, all these little things that you can sort of, these breadcrumbs you can follow along to get to these big moments in play where you're like, yes, this huge thing that I have been doing over the last 3 rounds is like working. This is awesome.
Are you guys doing anything unique for as a Kickstarter exclusive or early backing, or is it going to be pretty standard in terms of what's released during Kickstarter and thereafter?
No, we're going to balls to the wall in this one, fellas. We're
lay it on us. Lay it on us.
So there's a lot of conjecture and argument about Kickstarter exclusives and early birds and all of this stuff, and we've never done them because there a lot of wise voices in the industry say that like they can be divisive or they can be exclusionary and all these other things. But the fact of the matter is that especially now in the climate of the industry, if you're not doing something to get people to back on Kickstarter exclusively and really get them to give you that support while the campaign is live, they'll probably wait for retail. they might not even have any idea that it's even going to go to retail. They might just wait for retail, or they'll do the $1 pledge and grab it in the pledge manager afterwards. So this time we are changing things up. We're doing a Kickstarter exclusive. There's going to be a Familiars booster pack that's only going to be available to Kickstarter backers. And we are also doing a free gift. So it's probably like a $12 or $13 20 card booster pack that includes a new warband, a bunch of new items and spells, and that'll be for sale after the fact, but you'll get it for free if you back us on Kickstarter. So like the game is going to sell for $29. You're going to get a thing that's only available on Kickstarter plus a $12 20 card booster pack at no cost. So around $45 value for under $30.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
That's the type of thing that draws me into value. As Magic players, value is the most important.
Absolutely.
And if you can explain to me why I'm saving $15 on this thing, I'll consider it $15 in my pocket.
Sure.
After spending 30. After
Similar-
sucked $30 out.
Similar to Token Terrors, can we expect more expansions for Valka?
Well, I don't know. I imagine so.
Is this secret information?
No, I mean if it does really well, certainly the design space would absolutely support more stuff. The asymmetry that you get out of the warband abilities, none of them are like so drastic and so frequent that just throwing in more warbands would like upheave any of the design choices. So yeah, I mean the potential's there. I really do like how it's one contained thing. There's plenty of game in there. The solo mode also is really robust. There's a light legacy feature where you unlock new warband chieftains by defeating the solo mode with different warbands. So I mean, there's more game to discover by playing the game more. I'm open
cool.
to it. Brooke has expressed some interest. If it does gangbusters, if this thing breaks six figures, yeah, we'll do an expansion.
That's
yeah, I
sweet.
mean, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh, very cool. So being mindful of time here,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you really would like to touch on before we start winding down the conversation?
Well, at the top of episode, we had talked about some addressing AI and its role in the industry. So
Let's do
So
that.
we can check
Yeah.
that off the list.
Yeah, let's
I
do
will
that.
I will say at this point that feels like it could be another entire episode when you come back on, but we can at least scratch it, scratch at it right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could kick things off and just say,
Yeah.
so John, we wanted to ask you because it's such a big issue in the industry right now. All these new tools are coming out, the generative AI. We were just curious. I believe you have some, thoughts, some emerging thoughts on this new emerging technology when it comes to the ethics. What have you used it for anything in your game making?
Yes. I am like staunchly against AI generated images for a number of reasons. Chief among them is that some of my artwork has been taken without my consent and fed into the training data. I also know other working artists who have had the same thing happen, and historically speaking, artists are sort of like a overlooked and abused class of worker in the world. They often work.
Just look at how quickly they're played off the stage at the Academy Awards, specifically the visual effects folks.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's going on with AFTRA, and all of those strikes, and background actors with their images being scanned for perpetual use, unpaid as background actors. This is what we see with the AI-generated images training data set. This is people's entire lives that they have melted down into a piece of visual art. It expresses who they are. It's a part of their personality and the fiber of their being, and it's just taken away without permission, without accreditation, compensation, any sort of thing, and fed into this thing so that a multi-billion-dollar company can market it to other people so they can have a cool profile picture.
It's crazy.
It is. It is crazy. So when it comes to the ethics of AI-generated images, I don't use it. I understand that it can be a tool to ideate. I have heard all manner of people defend it for all manner of things. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to be using it. And I think that anybody who uses it, if you take it to market under the auspices of a commercial release where you directly benefit monetarily from those images, you are basically stealing from people. and it shows kind of a crack in character, and it will be a project or a product that I will never support, and I would actively tell other people not to support it. That's me.
Okay.
However, that being said, AI generative text, predictive text models are incredibly helpful for small business owners who need to shrink down a 2-hour task into 20 minutes. And I have a lot of conflicting feelings about using certain parts of AI generative technology versus others. I haven't heard a really strong case to show me the harm of using things like ChatGPT to put together an agenda for a meeting or help me format a Kickstarter project update. I'm not taking generative text and using that model to release pieces of fiction. So I'm not sure how much of the written word or human language is, if being used for utilitarian needs and being used to complete tasks, is theft, or how much I'm stealing or taking from someone else's work when I use generative text models to complete different jobs. But for the time being, it's really helpful, and I'm trying to be mindful of my intent and my purpose when I do use AI tools, because I understand that right now, like, we are in completely unexplored territory when it comes to the ethics of this stuff. And from what I know about generative images, I'm against it very much. From what I know about text generation, I think that there's a reason and a cause to use it right now, and my mind could change on that.
Do you think, as far as AI generated images, that you can conceive of an ethical case? Not that exists now, but like if someone said, "Hey, John, we want you to come up with a system that enables people to use AI generated images in an ethical way," do you think that there's an answer to that, or do you think it's just fundamentally there will never be anything that scratches that particular itch?
The problem is that no one would ever create art using AI generated technology for a reason that is supposed to feed the soul. That's not a thing they're going to do. They're going to use AI generated images to create a commodity or commercial product, something that they can sell. So, I mean, I'm not saying that wanting to make money is unethical, but I think that art existing as only a means to making money is kind of gross and scary. As far as an ethical way to use it, I mean, yeah, if you had a whole crop of artists who took a flat payment or a yearly residual payment to give the A-OK to use their artwork in a training model, and you went in and used only artwork that was authorized or stuff that was fair use, I couldn't really be mad at you. I mean, you know.
I personally think that that's something Danny and I have definitely talked about. Like, that would be really cool if we could, get that version of generative imaging going. Something that crossed my mind, and you might disagree, this is just off the top of my head, the one thing I was thinking was, if you were maybe like video content creation, if you just needed a image to sell a point you were making, and it was just, you needed it for the video itself, since it's just a supplement within a larger piece, that larger piece isn't necessarily for sale. Because it's one thing when you buy a game and the art in the game that you're being sold is generated. But I was just thinking it's another thing if, like, you're a small time, like you said, small time content creator, basically a small business owner, and you're just like, I need a picture of, I don't know, you're a political podcast or a political video maker, and you need the president in handcuffs, whichever president, Teddy Roosevelt, take him to jail. But, you need an old school picture of Teddy Roosevelt in handcuffs, something, or especially like those moments in history where something happened, but it was before the camera or the camera wasn't there to see it. And you kind of want to have that. So I'm not saying that I mean, please come at me with your arguments in the comments. Like I always say, cancel me in the comments. But that's something that crossed my mind is like, for me, if it's not the core of the thing you're building, if you're trying to make a documentary or something, and there's like an image that happened, but and as long as it probably came with a little disclaimer, like this image is not real, this image was generated by AI at the bottom.
Yeah, I think the transparency is really the main thing. You know, I would have a lot less of a problem with people taking AI generated images on commercial products to crowdsourcing if there was a loud, out and proud announcement at the top of the project feed that said this game was created using AI generated images. And the problem is that you don't see that, and that is a huge red flag for the people who opt to use this stuff because they never are transparent about it. And that kind of telegraphs to me that they know that it's not chill to do, as far as like where they're not directly profiting off it or things like that. I mean, I generally, like, I would say it's okay. And again, I'm not the arbiter or the judge of any of this stuff. This is just my personal view. I will say that I think that a lot of ways, especially when it comes to art, limitation can breed innovation. A chief example of that I love to mention is like 8-bit video game music. Some of the music that you see in these old games on a 4-channel audio feed is some of the catchiest, most memorable music you'll ever see. And part of the reason for that is that they had to work within limitation. And that same screen cap image you need for your YouTube channel, could you have made that by collaging stuff, by printing out images from a newspaper and collaging that stuff and scanning it in? Could you have made that same image by actually picking up a pencil and even crudely trying to draw it yourself? I would say arguably that a thing that's made instantly where you did zero work to create it other than type something into a prompt bar versus a thing that you took 20 minutes to make because you actually give a shit. The other one is, you know, the one where you make it yourself or you figure out how to get where you want to go on your own is a lot more interesting and tells a lot more about like your investment and your passion about the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. And the same thing, I like the same thing. The limitations breathe creativity. Same thing for the Beatles, you know, working on a 4-track, you know, and having to like condense their, you know, music into layers and then, you know, kind of consolidate it onto a single track and then freeing up the other 3 tracks for vocals and that sort of thing. And yeah, I think I pretty much, I mean, more or less, yeah. I mean, I pretty much agree. I do think like we're at the point with text. I mean, as long as you're not trying to like AI generate a screenplay or novel and then directly sell that thing. I mean, if it's just, you know, a tool for the purpose of selling, I can see that.
I think there's a commercial line, and I think once you start making money off of it, then I agree with you, John. That's theft. And you know, I think a lot of people's culpability feels diffused by the fact that they're ostensibly paying for something from a company that is telling them, oh no, this is okay for commercial use. But it's just like, you kind of know that you're buying a suit off the back of a truck, right? Like it's not, it's not like they got that suit legitimate.
I saw a 2-panel comic recently that I think really encapsulates the AI image stuff really well. And to an extent, if you are using other people's creative written work to put out children's books or novels or screenplays or whatever else, it applies here as well. It's a cute little cat sitting by a lake, fishing. Next to the cat is a bucket with fish that they have caught. That's the first panel. Second panel, a new cat has arrived into the scene. They have a fishing line. It is in this other cat's bucket. That to me is a very concise visual representation of what AI generated images are doing.
Yeah, 100%. But as we kind of said at the top of this conversation, we're only going to be able to scratch the tip of the
I'll tell you,
iceberg.
I'll tell you what, I'll be talking about it on social media, but I filled out a survey for National Public Radio asking about AI and how it's affecting the modern workplace. And my answers were interesting enough that a correspondent from NPR came out from Washington, D.C. and met with me for about an hour. And we chewed this subject. And from what I understand, I will be on an episode of NPR, one of the shows they have on NPR talking about this. So you can hear more about it from me if you tune into that whenever that happens.
100%. And
we'll definitely be putting NPR contributor into your byline on our...
Sweet. Yeah. I didn't even think about how I could start doing that. Cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. Danny, he actually said something very interesting there. And like editor warning, you might need to cut this out, Will. But you know, you were talking about AI being, you know, full-throated about it in your advertising campaign and your selling, especially on Kickstarter. There was a game that Danny and I had our eyes on, and I'm wondering if you saw it too, and if you have any opinions about how they handled the usage, their usage of.
Yeah.
Well, he knew it off the top of his
Yeah.
head. What? Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like when I looked deep, you had to dig for it. You had to, because we knew it was AI art. We could smell it, and you had to dig for it. And then when it got to it, he kind of made it seem like, yeah, but I did a lot of work to guide the AI, and I was like, yeah, this is. It kind of felt it felt a little like, I don't want to say fishy. I just want to say it felt like they were doing everything they could to separate themselves from the tool that they used. And I wish I would have rather him be like, I was able to make this game because I used artificial intelligence artwork, and the aesthetics of the game lean into the artificial intelligence artwork. But it seemed more like they were trying to play some smoke and mirror game.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the only smart applications of AI generative images, in my opinion, because the game was thematically based around being in a computer, right? It was like was an algorithm, magic, and the guy said that he had altered the artwork because he has experience as a visual artist, which leads me to think maybe that, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the creator of that game like a known Magic the Gathering like cube builder? Like this dude,
It's
so already has a bit of a pedigree as a person who has some game design chops, because they're known in the Magic community for building these cool cubes, or I don't know if he did any format design. So probably they found out about Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, and they were like, cool, like I can take this idea for a design, I can skin theme it towards, computers, and now I have a justification for thematically using AI generated images for my game. I agree, it was a bit buried. I couldn't really unpack how a game that used all those images alone did so well until I looked into the creator, and then I kind of figured out why that was.
Yeah, having a community behind you in going to Kickstarter is huge, it seems. It's like, that's full transparency. That's why we're, part of the reason we're producing this podcast is to draw more attention to Mega Moth Studios, to draw more attention to X Seekers of Fortune. So I think that did him very well. But I guess I just wish they had been more upfront about it. Maybe even put out a video of him explaining his process more thoroughly directly to the camera.
Yeah, a time lapse.
And owning it.
Yeah, a time lapse video that showed the process would have been huge, and a tagline under the project header title that said, not the world's first, but an AI generated game. Right away, like right on the project subheader. But you don't see stuff like that for some reason.
Yeah, I think case, to be fair to him, he definitely had a little bit of like a video buried down below, kind of showing the methodology and how he would basically do the rough image himself and then feed that into.
That's right.
And then iterate on it, which I think is interesting.
No, that gives it a little less of an icky feeling, because the composition and the actual structure of the image was based off of his pen strokes, and he's using something that he created in order to inform the final product. So that's a little bit different than just going whole cloth. I'm using AI, right? I agree that does color it a little bit more favorably in my view.
John, anything that you would say you really want to just make sure that the audience takes away from this conversation from your perspective?
Great. Yes, the things I would like you to take away is it takes a village. If you're listening to this podcast, it means you care about indie creators. And if the products or the things that they're making, that they're passionate about, that they're bootstrapping in order to release to the world because they have some silly dream about having a board game played by other people, and you support that, good on you. Keep doing that. That's the only way that these things get to be a thing that exists. And we have to sort of help each other out in order to make these things happen. Also, support indie creators. If you're in the design space, try to have fun, enjoy it, keep playing board games. They're great as long as they're getting people together and you're having a good time with it. And I think that's it.
I've got a couple if I can.
Sure.
November 7th, back Valka.
There you go.
And at PAX Unplugged, go buy some of these awesome custom dice. $10, great price point. Go see the terrible games at PAX Unplugged.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we go, John, why don't you lay out all the socials that you want people to go and see you on? What is your TikTok? What are the websites? Where can they go to back your games or buy the ones that have already come out?
Sure. You can go to terriblegames.info if you want to pick up any of our previous releases or pre-order a copy of Black Mold, which is also still in the late pledge phase. So you can receive a copy of Black Mold in late December along with our Kickstarter backers if you want to do that. We are at Terrible Games on TikTok. We're also on Instagram and on Facebook. I've mostly been attending to TikTok recently because organic engagement and audience growth has been happening there versus the other ones, which seem to be behind some sort of wall that is preventing anything from happening, despite the fact that I have like $600 or $700 in paid ads running right now, which I pulled today because they're not converting well. So yeah, you can also just search me. Like you could search John De Campos and then you'll see my stuff probably. You can go to ghostbatart.com if you want to see some of my artwork. I'm also on Instagram. And yeah, come out to PAX, party with us. Please support Valka on November 7th. We really would appreciate that.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And we want our audience to go out there and support. That would be amazing, and we'll be sure to make mention of it on our own social medias when it goes live. Okay, well, with that, I guess we're going to be skipping our something random this week, which is a shame. I had something actually planned. It was going to be my turn. So next time, we'll be doing that. Danny, was there anything you wanted to end off with?
Well, I think maybe we can substitute the something random as we do after we do the sign off here. Let's leave the listeners at home with a sampling of the Valka soundtrack to play off.
That's right.
And that'll give them a nice little something random to experience here at the end of the show.
And in fact, we can just have a listening party right now. Like, just
Let's do it.
Bring it in.
I'm ready.
Let's bring it up, Will. Okay. Ooh. Damn. All right, folks. Well, we're going to leave you on that, but just to get us out of here, I'm just going to say that I have been Joel, and reminding you that you must start somewhere, so why not here?
All right. I don't have anything quippy to say today, so I'll pass.
Really quick, John, what is the maker of the music we should be listening to? What are their names?
The dude who made the game. Brooke. Yeah,
Brooke Penrose.
I was listening I was listening to a Dungeon Sin soundtrack, and as a joke I was like, dude, you should make a soundtrack for the game. He was like, okay.
This is a talented guy.
Energy.
Like, yeah, I love that energy too. That's the kind of people I like to work with. Well, here, let me really quick say this. Theme music by James Holden. Exit music by Brooke Penrose. Produced and edited by William Wymore.